The evening light is fading outside your window, and you're probably sitting in your usual chair, maybe with a cup of something warm in your hands, feeling that quiet tiredness settle in deeper than it used to. Your body feels a bit heavier, your thoughts don't snap into place quite as fast. And even though the day wasn't especially busy, there's this underlying haze that makes everything, remembering where you put your reading glasses, following a favorite show, or even chatting with a neighbor, take a little more effort. You might smile and say to yourself or to someone close, "Well, this is what happens when the years add up." But somewhere inside there's a small voice wondering if it's really supposed to feel this way. Let me sit here with you and share something I've seen change things for so many people just like you. A huge part of that mental heaviness, those annoying little memory lapses, and the way small irritations feel bigger than they should, isn't always simply old age taking its toll. Very often it's linked to how your sleep is supporting or not supporting your brain night after night. And the good news is that small, sensible changes to those habits can bring back more clarity and steadiness than you might think possible. I'm Dr. Michael Kent, and for over 20 years I've dedicated my work to understanding exactly how sleep shapes brain health as we get older. I've listened to hundreds of kind, thoughtful people in their 60s, 70s, and beyond describe the same frustrations. They talk about walking into a room and standing there blank, unable to remember their purpose, or reaching for a common word in conversation and coming up empty, or waking up already feeling like the day is too much before they've even had breakfast. They come convinced these are unavoidable parts of getting older, but when we carefully look at their routines, especially their nights, sleep patterns that have quietly slipped out of balance often turn out to be the main reason. The usual advice about sleep, that you just need 8 hours and everything will be fine, misses so much of what's really happening. Sleep isn't just closing your eyes for a certain number of hours. It's when your brain becomes incredibly busy in the most helpful ways. Every single night it acts like a careful housekeeper, gently washing away the waste products that build up from all your daytime thinking, moving, and living. It carefully files away the memories you want to keep so they don't fade. It repairs and strengthens the tiny connections between brain cells that let you think clearly, solve problems, and remember names or faces. And it resets your emotions so you can wake up feeling even and calm, rather than starting the day already tense, short-tempered, or low. Anytime that important nighttime work gets shortened, interrupted, or thrown off, even by things that seem minor at first, the brain notices immediately. The effects show up in ordinary moments that can feel small, but add up quickly. You might start telling a story to your grandson, and then pause because the detail you just mentioned slips away. Or you find yourself snapping at your spouse over how the remote is pointed because patience wears thin faster. Or you sit down to look at the newspaper, and the words don't hold your attention the way they used to. The National Institute on Aging has clear numbers on this. Nearly half of adults over 65 deal with ongoing sleep troubles of some kind. Yet more than 60% of those same people view those troubles as harmless, or just an expected part of aging. What often goes unnoticed is how those sleep difficulties can steadily chip away at brain sharpness over months and years, without any dramatic pain or clear warning signs to alert you. The truly surprising thing for most folks is that one of the biggest quiet threats to keeping your mind clear in later life usually isn't eating too much sugar, the everyday stresses that come with living, or the family genes you were born with. More often than not, it's the seemingly small habits around bedtime and during the night. Over the next little while, I want to carefully walk you through the 5 most common sleep patterns that silently harm senior brains, then explain the straightforward research-backed adjustments, drawn from solid studies at Harvard, Stanford, and the National Institute on Aging, that can help protect your memory, keep your focus steady, and help your moods stay more balanced. These aren't big, overwhelming changes or things that require fancy equipment. They're gentle, practical steps you can start trying right away in the life you're already living. Before we keep going, if it's all right with you, just type your age in the comments below. I always like seeing who's here with me, because it helps me feel like I'm speaking directly to people who might be noticing these same shifts and want simple, easy-to-understand ways to feel clearer and more like themselves. Let's get into what's really happening inside your brain when your sleep timing isn't consistent, because this explanation is something most people never hear in plain, everyday words. As we move through our 60s and 70s, our circadian rhythm, that built-in daily clock that manages alertness, memory strength, concentration power, and emotional steadiness, begins to lose some of its former flexibility and smoothness. You can think of it like a well-run train station where every arrival and departure used to happen exactly on schedule, keeping everything organized and calm. If the timetable suddenly becomes unpredictable, with trains arriving and leaving at random times, confusion spreads through the whole system. Your brain works in much the same way. The central clock, a small region called the suprachiasmatic nucleus, relies heavily on steady, predictable cues from your day to keep all the rhythms coordinated. When bedtime drifts from one night to the next, perhaps early one evening because you're especially tired, later the next because you stayed up talking with family or watching something on television, the deep non-REM sleep phases, which are so vital for turning short-term experiences into long-lasting memories, get noticeably shorter. A team at the University of Colorado followed 300 adults across 8 full years, and their findings were striking and consistent. People whose sleep schedules varied a lot night to night experienced a 30% faster decline in their ability to recall specific events and details from their lives, and this link held even when total sleep time stayed about the same. I hear this question a lot. Doctor, I still get 7 or 8 hours most nights. Why should the exact time I go to bed make such a difference? The key is that total hours give you the duration of sleep, but consistent timing gives you the quality, the complete depth of those restorative stages where the real brain repair and strengthening happen. Without that regularity, even enough hours leave important parts of the process incomplete. If you've ever stepped into a room and immediately forgotten what you went in there for, feel free to add the word foggy to your comments so I know this feels familiar to you. A second habit that appears over and over is lying in bed awake for 20 minutes, 40 minutes, sometimes close to an hour, figuring it's no big deal since you're at least trying to rest. At first it seems harmless, but your brain is constantly learning from what happens, and prolonged wakefulness in bed teaches it that the bed is a place for alertness, planning tomorrow, or worrying rather than sinking into calm rest. Over weeks and months, sleep turns lighter and more fragmented because the mind no longer trusts the bed as the automatic signal to relax. It's similar to trying to park your car in a spot that's become a hectic, noisy intersection when it should be a quiet garage. The peaceful space disappears under the activity. Johns Hopkins researchers studied 250 adults aged 65 and older and found that those who regularly stayed awake for long periods in bed ended up having 42% more awakenings throughout the night and reported higher levels of morning anxiety. That ongoing pattern quietly feeds into daytime brain fog, quicker irritation over small frustrations, and sometimes a new undercurrent of nervousness that feels strange because it wasn't there before. Then comes the habit of going to bed unusually early, maybe 7 or 8 in the evening, because it feels like the sensible way to ensure plenty of rest. It sounds logical, but the brain actually requires a sufficient stretch of wakeful hours during the day to generate sleep pressure, that natural buildup of tiredness that pushes you toward deeper, more healing sleep stages. When bedtime arrives too soon, both deep slow-wave sleep and REM dreaming sleep get cut shorter, which directly weakens memory storage and emotional regulation. Think of your brain during waking hours as a sponge absorbing all the day's experiences. If it hasn't had enough time to take in that daytime activity, it can't fully release and refresh itself overnight. University of Michigan scientists examined older adults who chose very early bedtimes and found their REM cycles were 20% shorter, even with 9 or 10 hours in bed total. That reduction can closely resemble the first signs of cognitive slowing, yet often the brain remains healthy, and restoring the proper balance between wakefulness and sleep reverses it. Light exposure during the night, even modest amounts from a hallway fixture left on, a phone screen glowing nearby, or a television on low, catches almost everyone off guard. It signals to your brain that it's still daytime and suppresses melatonin, the protective hormone that guards nerve cells and initiates the deepest, most restorative sleep phases. Picture the nighttime brain as a factory running a vital cleanup shift. Any light keeps some parts working when they should be quiet, so waste lingers longer. Stanford researchers tested this specifically with adults 65 and older and found that even low-intensity nighttime illumination dropped melatonin levels by 50%, leading to shallower sleep overall and poorer memory formation the next day. People tend to brush this off because the harm accumulates so gradually and doesn't come with immediate discomfort, but it adds up quietly and contributes to that overall mental fatigue. Long-term use of sleep medications rounds out the common list. These can offer welcome relief for brief periods when sleep is especially difficult, but when taken nightly across months or years, many suppress the exact deep non-REM and REM stages the brain depends on for consolidating learning, clearing harmful buildup, and maintaining emotional equilibrium. A study published in JAMA Neurology examined seniors using benzodiazepine-based sleep aids consistently for more than 6 months and noted a 23% reduction in slow-wave sleep, the crucial stage that helps wash away proteins like beta-amyloid linked to cognitive concerns. Even when the person feels they've slept adequately, the brain misses out on full nighttime maintenance, leaving subtle deficits that accumulate. The hopeful reality running through all of this is that these habits don't cause permanent, unfixable damage. Brains retain impressive resilience well into the 60s, 70s, and beyond, and meaningful recovery often follows when conditions improve. Awareness paired with thoughtful, consistent adjustments makes the difference, not fear. To bring this closer to home, let me share 2 real stories from people I've guided through the process. Margaret, at 72, sat in my office looking worn and frightened. Her hands were clasped tightly as she said, "Doctor, I feel like my mind is slipping away from me." She described walking into rooms only to forget her purpose there, groping for everyday words that used to come without thought, and noticing these lapses happening more often in conversations or while running errands. It scared her deeply. She worried about losing her independence and becoming a burden to her family. She believed she was getting 8 solid hours of sleep each night, but as we talked further, she explained that her bedtime varied quite a bit, sometimes starting at 9, other nights closer to 11, depending on how the evening unfolded, and she frequently spent a full hour lying awake with her mind spinning through worries or replaying the day's events. Together, we introduced the REST protocol, a clear, phased plan I'll describe in detail shortly. Within 6 weeks, she returned with noticeable excitement in her voice. She said her mornings had transformed. She now felt roughly 80% clear and alert upon waking instead of the 40% she had grown used to. Nighttime awakenings fell from 4 or 5 episodes down to just 1 or 2. The anxiety that had begun shadowing her days eased considerably, and she regained a sense of trust in her own thinking. Memory wasn't suddenly perfect, but her brain felt nourished and rested for the first time in a long while. Looking me in the eye, she said quietly, "I was convinced I was losing my mind for good, but it turned out my brain had just been running on empty without the right kind of rest." Harold was 68 and had adopted the habit of retiring very early, around 7 most evenings, because he thought extra time in bed would protect his health. Unfortunately, he would wake around 3 in the morning, completely alert, and remain unable to fall back asleep for hours. Testing showed a mild dip in his short-term recall ability, and he had depended on a low-dose sleep pill for several years. We focused on establishing a fixed wake-up time every morning, reducing any sources of light after dark, and gradually shifting bedtime later in small increments. After 8 weeks, his deep sleep had risen by 35%, based on the wearable tracker he used. His word recall score climbed from 15 out of 20 to 19 out of 20. The persistent morning haze cleared away completely, and his daily mood became far more consistent without the emotional roller coaster he'd experienced before. The REST protocol successfully realigned his natural repair rhythms, and he expressed genuine surprise at how much lighter and more capable he felt overall. Experiences like Margaret's and Harold's happen regularly, Countless seniors show clear, trackable progress in thinking and mood when their sleep patterns receive thoughtful attention. The framework that has guided so many of these improvements is one I developed and call the REST protocol: rhythm, education, stimulus control, and timing. Let's go through each element carefully so you can picture exactly how it fits into real life. The foundation is establishing a fixed wake-up time. Choose a practical hour, perhaps 7 or 7:30, and rise at that same moment every morning without exception, even following a night when sleep felt short or restless. This single practice powerfully stabilizes the circadian clock and strengthens the natural buildup toward deep sleep the following evening. It gives your brain a dependable signal about when daytime begins and nighttime should follow. Harvard-led research demonstrated that holding a consistent wake time boosted deep sleep by 30% within only 2 weeks for many participants. Alongside that, handle naps thoughtfully. If napping feels helpful, limit it strictly to 20 minutes or less and finish well before 3 in the afternoon. Extended or late-day naps reduce the healthy pressure your body needs to drop into truly restorative nighttime sleep. In place of long naps, channel energy into daytime habits that encourage natural tiredness later. One of the easiest and most effective boosters is morning light exposure. Aim for 15 to 20 minutes of natural daylight soon after waking, perhaps by stepping outside with your first cup of tea, strolling gently around your yard or neighborhood, or sitting near an open window where sunlight reaches you. That early light helps recalibrate your internal timer, speeds the onset of sleep in the evening, and increases the depth of the sleep you achieve. Pairing the light with mild movement, like easy walking, stretching, or light chores, further supports the process by gently tiring the body in a healthy way. Stimulus control becomes especially useful if you often find yourself awake in bed for extended periods. The rule is straightforward. If 20 to 30 minutes pass without sleep arriving, leave the bed calmly. Move to a different space if possible. Keep lighting very soft and low, and choose an activity that is deliberately uninteresting and non-activating. You might flip through a dull catalog, organize a drawer quietly, or sit listening to gentle instrumental music. Steer clear of phones, televisions, bright rooms, or anything mentally engaging. This method gradually reteaches the brain that bed means sleep rather than wakeful thinking or frustration. The Johns Hopkins group reported that seniors applying this technique reduced their average nighttime awakenings by 42% across 6 weeks, leading to noticeably fresher mornings. Regarding bedtime, the window that suits most older adults best falls between 9:30 and 10:30 at night. If your current pattern sits outside that range, resist forcing an abrupt change. Instead, adjust gradually by moving bedtime about 15 minutes later every 2 or 3 nights, until you settle comfortably into the ideal zone. This slower shift allows your body to adapt smoothly and frequently results in extended periods of deep, slow-wave sleep and REM sleep, both of which enhance memory consolidation and emotional steadiness. University of Michigan findings showed seniors who optimized bedtime in this way improved their scores on cognitive assessments by 15 to 20% after 4 weeks. The final pieces involve protecting nighttime darkness and thoughtfully reviewing any regular sleep medications with your doctor. After sunset, switch to dim, warm-colored lighting rather than harsh overheads, position electronic devices screen down or in another room, and turn off televisions well ahead of bedtime. Preserving natural melatonin flow supports deeper sleep stages and more effective overnight brain cleanup. If sleep aids are part of your routine, discuss with your physician whether continuing them remains appropriate or if alternatives might better align with long-term brain health. Small refinements in this area often yield outsized improvements. When you follow the REST protocol consistently, the benefits tend to unfold in stages that feel motivating and sustainable. During the initial week, sleep often grows subtly deeper, middle-of-the-night awakenings decrease in number, and mornings bring a faint but welcome increase in mental brightness. By the second week, most people fall asleep more quickly after getting into bed. Overall anxiety levels dip slightly, and daytime alertness begins to feel more reliable. In weeks 3 and 4, the gains become easier to notice. Recalled details surface more readily. Focus holds steadier during reading or talking with others. Memory for recent events strengthens, and emotional responses feel calmer and less reactive. From week 4 onward, the deep and REM phases settle into a dependable rhythm. Reliance on daytime naps diminishes, and a broader sense of cognitive clarity returns, making ordinary activities feel smoother and less effortful. The process resembles a gentle yet profound reset for the brain, starting quietly but building into a meaningful restoration of sharpness once consistent rhythms take hold. To be completely transparent, the REST protocol supports better sleep-related brain function, but does not serve as a cure or direct treatment for dementia, Alzheimer's, or other neurological disorders. If you currently take prescribed medications of any kind, particularly those for sleep, mood, blood pressure, or other conditions, never discontinue or alter them independently. Consult your doctor first. For anyone managing diagnosed sleep apnea, significant cardiac issues, depression, or similar concerns, speak with your physician before introducing notable routine changes. The best approach is gradual. Lock in the steady wake-up time for several days or a week, then slowly incorporate bedtime adjustments, followed by light management and stimulus control as your body settles in. These remain safe, low-risk modifications backed by measurable positive effects on brain performance. Here's the challenge I offer you personally. Select one single component of the REST protocol that feels approachable, perhaps committing to that unchanging wake-up time, experimenting with a slightly later bedtime, minimizing light after dark, or applying the get-out-of-bed rule when sleep stalls, and follow it faithfully every day for 30 full days. As you go along, keep a casual mental note of how clear-headed you feel upon waking, how stable your mood remains through the hours, and how reliably your memory serves you in daily situations. When the 30 days end, return here and share your observations in a comment. Your honest experiences can lift someone else who's reading along, and putting your own observations into words helps solidify the changes for you. Your brain has carried you through decades of experiences, relationships, challenges, and joys. It has earned more than a casual dismissal as just getting older. Through reliable, caring sleep practices, you can actively nurture its strength, helping memory stay dependable, focus remain steady, and emotional balance endure. Next week, I plan to explore one unexpected daily habit that often lifts brain fog in seniors, and I feel confident at least one suggestion will prompt you to reconsider long-held ideas about keeping your mind vibrant.